Hi guys, welcome to my second video. I've been looking forward to this video. I don't know why, but I think it was the overwhelming support and love that you guys showed to me on my first video, and it's kind of encouraged me to push on. Let's see how this YouTube thing is working. Okay, on this episode, I'm going to be discussing handwriting, and trust me, marking is one of those things that used to stress me when I was teaching. You got all those books you need to mark, and then coming across books with poor handwriting just increases your stress levels, and you're like, nah, I'm not dealing with this. But we have to. So I'm just going to be sharing tips and things we can do to help our kids at home, develop better handwriting. And one of the things I always say is start from young, before they start school. There are a lot of things we can do with them at home that would help build their fine motor skills. So there's a lot of games you can play with them at home that will develop that essential skill. So you can do games like stacking up the cups, or even blocks, choo-choo train, things that involve them using their hands. Coordination is very important, and also they would help develop their muscles in their fingers. And the more they do that, by the time they start holding the pencil, their grip is much better, and which then helps them later on. So getting that out of the way, we're going to deep dive now into handwriting. So let's start from reception. If you have a child going into reception, one of the things you can start doing at home is practicing handwriting. I've got here an exercise book that some of us might already be familiar with because we've used it when we were in school as well. Trust me, some of you will have used this. Okay, so it looks like this. Can you see the exercise book? So it looks like that. And literally what you want to do is you want to start this off with them. So what I've done is I've done an example of the things you can do. So I've written out some letters, as you can see. So I've written out just about 6 letters, and what you want to get that child to do, you just follow the rules. You can see I've written that letter inside the middle box, and get the child to follow the same rule that you've applied to the first one across, and continue that. Maybe do a couple of letters per day. If you spend 10-15 minutes, you can just do maybe 3 or 4 letters, and then the next day, because when they're in reception, you want to do as much of this as you can at home, because trust me, teachers, we're doing an amazing job, but we can't sit back with every child to teach them how to hold the pencil and also how to write. It's very challenging. If you have teachers that's doing it, wonderful, but we all can't do it, especially when you have a class full of 30 kids. It's just really hard. So if we can do this at home to help our kids, to support them, so you can start off with lower cases. It's always better to start them off with lower cases, and then you build up. By the time they're confident in writing lower cases, you can start with the upper cases. And as the child progresses, apologies, I've got a really bad cold. As the child progresses, you can then start including letters in what they're writing. So I've given some example here. So I've written some couple of letters, words, apologies. I've written some words out. So I've got cards, I've got dog, and I've got boat. So by the time the child is finishing reception, moving into year 1, you can't just start on words. So by then, their letters would have been more, confident in writing the letters, especially if you're practicing just one of these. You can get one of these books online. I'm not sure you can get them in a bookshop. I've not come across them in any of the stationery shop because they're not very popular. So I got this one was given to my daughter in her school, but you can get some of these if you go to Amazon, for example, I think it's about £1 or £2. I checked online. So get one of these. Just have this at home, something handy they can be using to practice. Don't leave everything to the teachers. Trust me. Some kids would naturally just get on with it, but some kids need extra support. And when you've identified that your child might need that extra support, dedicating a few minutes in a day to get them to just practice on their handwriting would be good. And then by the time the child is getting into key stage 2, so 3 and upwards, if you still identify that they still need help with their handwriting, which most kids will still need a bit of practicing, because writing itself, the skills you need to write really nice and clearly, it takes time. It doesn't, not everyone would just get on with it and write brilliantly and beautifully. So if you have kids who are in upper year group and you still need help with the handwriting, you can get some workbook. I've got here this handwriting workbook. This is written in cursive. You can get those written in italics as well. So you can just get them to practice. And what you do with this one, unlike the exercise book where you literally have to write it out, you don't have to write anything out here. All you do is you give this to the child. You can see one of them is already written in bold, and the child just needs to trace the rest of it. So you can see there's some of them that have been written faintly, and the child literally just needs to trace those. And then towards the end of the book, they have words. So they would have letters at the beginning and then words. And what this is just helping the child is just to build a structure and a pattern. So they just follow that rule. And the more they practice, you start seeing them writing this independently in their own books. And it's starting to look as cursive as this is. So it would look like this at the end. This is the start. And by the time the trace, by the time the child practices books like this, and I'm not recommending a particular workbook, there's loads and loads of them. You just want to have one or two at home that you can, depends on the amount your kids. If you have 2-3 kids, you can just buy a few of these and just have it handy at home. Sometimes when my daughter is bored, she will still go back to this book and just trace them. So I don't think you ever grow out of this book. Sometimes I sit there and trace as well. We can do a bit of fun together. Why not? Okay, so this is the things I would want to recommend, for handwriting. And another tip I would also like to suggest is that, incorporate reading. Reading is very essential. And the more you read, the more you write. And the more you write, you build up on your handwriting skills. So incorporate reading. When they finish reading a book, for example, you can just say, why don't you do a book review? Or just write a paragraph of what the book was about. And then as they're writing, remind them, can you try to use the handwriting as you've learned from the workbook, or like you've been practicing. This kind of encourages them, and also you start to see the progress. Everything you do, you need to be consistent. If you're working on handwriting, you need to be consistent. It's not going to be an overnight, the write today and tomorrow that is looking fantastic. It's a process, and you just need to be consistent about it. Just keep pushing, and at the end of the day, we want to see progress in our kids, whatever they do. Okay, last and final for me is exams. A lot of people might not be aware that if your handwriting is really poor and you sit an exam paper, you lose points. I used to work for Edexcel, and one of the things we used to do is when it's so unclear that we can't mark it, we kind of leave those books, and the examiners who then take those books from us, they would deduct marks, because the fact that we cannot mark it, what's the guarantee that they're going to mark it? But we need to identify those exam papers that we can't mark, and those kids will lose points. And no matter how bright you are, if you cannot write clearly for someone else to be able to read it, you're going to lose points. So let's encourage our kids. Nobody's too old to practice with the workbook. Even if you're in year 7 and your handwriting is still looking a bit, it still needs to be tweaked a bit, just go back to some of this workbook and encourage them. Look online, look at different handwriting patterns. Tell them, let's try and get to this point, let's get to this level. And the more you practice, like I said, we'll get there. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, I've got some questions from my last video, people asking me to do some particular topic. I'm going to be obviously prioritizing the topics that I do week on, because it's not easy to juggle full-time work, mommy, and then YouTube. I try to do one video a week. Fingers crossed, I'm going to stick to that. But if you have any questions or any comments or anything you want to see in particular, please leave a comment in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe, share my video, tell your loved ones.